All right, so this is the Downey health quiz review, and we're gonna cover all of this stuff. And just a little note that it shows private parts, so it's gonna be like a little graphic. Without further ado, let's head on. So that's just like a little warning for y'all. All right, now we got the freaking. This is the male. All right, this is the male. This is the male reproductive system. So we got going on here. What do we got going on here? Well, first of all, you got the testes. All right, and in common terms, it's the balls. All right, so basically, this is where the male hormone testosterone is produced and is where sperm is produced. Now, for your balls, you have the scrotum. This is basically, think about it as your like your ball sack, basically, right? It's the thing that's like protecting the testes, right? Now, then you have the epididymis. So what the epididymis does is that this is kind of where the sperm develops. All right, so the sperm gets produced and then goes to the epididymis to develop, and eventually, when the sperm gets fertilized, it travels out of the epididymis and into something known as the vas deferens. The vas deferens is basically just this like tube, right? Just this part of like the tube, right? That transports the sperm. Now, then we have the seminal vesicle. Sorry. So this seminal vesicle, it provides semen fluid, basically, right? Y'all have probably heard of semen. Semen is basically sperm plus some semen fluid. All right, let's just call it some semen fluid. All right. A lot of people think that semen is the same thing as sperm, but it's basically sperm plus some sort of fluid. And the seminal vesicle provides that fluid, as well as the prostate. All right, so both the prostate and the seminal vesicle provide the fluid to create semen. Now, next, once the sperm basically gets those two fluids, it travels past the Cowper's gland, which basically push the sperm along its way, and eventually it goes out. So also important to know that this is also where pee goes, right? You have like the bladder right over here, right? And kidneys filter the bad stuff out your body, goes to the bladder, you pee it out. Now, the male can either be uncircumcised or circumcised. So basically, like the sausage right over here, right? It has like hella flaps. All right, if it's uncircumcised, there's like hella flaps around it. However, when it's circumcised, all the flaps are kind of cut off. Now, being uncircumcised is, it makes it like more prone to infection. So it's like, if you have all of these flaps right over here, well, that's like a pretty dark area, and it's going to be pretty good for bacteria to live in there. So that's why being uncircumcised kind of makes you more prone to infection. People usually get circumcised because, you probably heard of it, but it's like, for religious purposes. Next, we got the woman internal. So this is the woman. This woman internal right over here. What do we got going on here? So right over here, we got the two ovaries. So these are something known as ovaries. This is where eggs and estrogen is produced. Now, eggs will travel down something known as the fallopian tubes. The fallopian tubes, all right? Travels down there. And the fallopian tubes are important because it also plays a key role in fertilization for the egg. It's like, imagine if you got like a male inside of this, and then, then you have like the sperm going up, right? The fallopian tubes are basically the pathway so that the sperm meets the egg. And you already know that sperm plus egg equals baby. So, it just plays a crucial part of fertilization. Now we got the uterus right over here. It's basically this kind of center portion. The uterus. This is where, the baby develops. Then you have something known as the cervix. This is the cervix. And the cervix basically connects the uterus to the vagina. All right. The vagina, you already know what it's kind of used for, sexual purposes. And yeah, that's basically the woman internal. This is kind of like the easiest portion. So I have to talk about periods. All right, so how does period happen? Well, remember that sperm plus egg equals baby. But what happens if you don't have the sperm part? Well, then the egg kind of just gets dropped down to the uterus, and you have this lining right over here. This is kind of the lining of the uterus. Now, normally it's there to kind of nurture the baby, but when there is no fertilized egg, aka no baby, well, it kind of all just gets dumped out, right? All of this lining kind of just gets dumped out. It's like hella bloody and stuff for anatomy. Now we have the woman external, This is once again another woman. All right, woman external. So what we got going on here? We got the mons pubis up here, basically the pubic hair, and that's, for protection. Then you have the outer and inner labia, and what that basically does is that's just basically protection as well. All right, so all of this is all for protection. Now you have something known as the clitoris, or basically the clitoris is basically a sexual organ, and it's used for pleasure. All right. Then you have a bladder opening, and you have the vaginal opening. Now the vaginal opening is where the sex happens, right? But the bladder opening is for piss. So don't get those two things confused, okay? And yeah, that's pretty much it for the female reproductive system. So now that we covered the anatomy, let's talk about sexuality and stuff like that. So first of all, abstinence refers to decisions to not have sex. So like, it could be limited to a specific period of time. For example, some people don't want to have sex until, they get married. Celibacy is kind of like more long term. It's like I won't have sex for like the rest of my life, something like that. Now, gynecologists are people who specialize in the female reproductive system and related health issues like STDs or STIs if you're feeling a little quirky. So you should probably visit a gynecologist when you're 21, you're sexually active, or something feels wrong. All right, if you got a lump in your testicle, you probably have testicular cancer, so you should probably do something about that. You got your biological gender and you got your internal gender. So biological gender, well, you're assigned. It's either going to be male or it's going to be female. Internal gender is what you're feeling, all right? You could feel like a male or a female. You could feel like, I don't know, you could feel like I don't know, I've seen people online. Some people feel like a demon. Some people, a demon. Some people might feel attracted to cars. Internal gender, right? They might identify as a car. I don't know. Like internal gender is basically, you let your imagination run free. Like you do what you want. You can identify as a demon. You can identify as a car. You don't got to identify as a male or a female. All right. Some people are, trans. They born as a male, feel like something else, right? So they're called a trans female. Now there are a lot of gender roles. Like male being a construction worker. And woman. Maybe like being in the kitchen, like those are like stereotypes, right? Societal kind of expectations. And it might be limiting people's potential. Like women can be pretty good construction drivers. Women can be pretty good drivers as well, right? So, if you place these societal expectations on them, to be a certain thing, who knows? They might be pretty good at it. All right, here's the fun stuff. All right, now sexuality is about your sexual feelings, blah, 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 blah. Sexual orientation. First, there's many different types of attractions. People are heterosexual or straight. They could be homosexual or gay. They could be bisexual, attracted to both genders. They could be asexual, not attracted to any gender. Or they can be cisgender, which is basically, cisgender, straight people. It's basically like, a biological assigned gender that is the same as the gender the person identifies with. You could just kind of like think about, you definitely know someone in your life that's cisgender. For example, I'm a male. I was assigned a male at birth, and I'm still a male. I still identify as a male, so I'll be, cisgender. So yeah, I'm pretty sure cisgender people. They don't have to be like. All right, never mind. All right. Oh, and then you got the LGBTQIA plus. Is basically, it's not Latino. It's lesbian, gay, bi, trans, queer, intersex, asexual. Intersex is basically kind of individuals that are born with variations in their reproductive or sexual anatomy that don't fit typical male or female definitions. So it's kind of like they're like kind of like in like the middle, that sort of thing. All right, now let's talk about STIs. So STIs, or STDs, sexually transmitted infections or sexually transmitted diseases, they could either be viral, parasitic, or bacterial. Now, viral, basically virus, no cure. If you get it, kind of cooked. Bacterial, parasitic, often just use antibiotics. Let's look at some specific examples. Chlamydia and gonorrhea, they are both bacterial. Very, very similar symptoms like painful urination and discharge, treated with antibiotics. Kind of the difference between these two is gonorrhea, you kind of have like yellow discharge, while chlamydia, you kind of have like a more whitish discharge. Then you have syphilis. We got to know is that it progresses in 3 stages. And there's like sores, and it can also like spread to, babies. Like for example, if like a woman's pregnant and then, they have like, they're pregnant, right? Like it can spread to the baby, and once again, treated with antibiotics. Then you have trichome. This basically long name. It's just for short, trick. And yellow discharge, ab pain, and the treatment is antibiotics. Okay. HPV. This one is the one that leads to genital warts, and I'm pretty sure cervical cancer. It doesn't have any cure, because remember, HPV is viral, herpes is viral, and HIV is viral. But the good thing is that you can get vaccines to prevent this from happening in the first place. So, for example, HPV and hepatitis B. Hepatitis B. Where is hepatitis? I don't know. It's not on here. I kind of forgot to write that on here. Whatever. All right, but basically HPV, and you probably got the hepatitis B shot before, right? So the vaccines are there to basically stop this from happening in the first place. And that's kind of how you can prevent viral STIs. Herpes, remember that they cause painful blisters, all right? And these itchy small bumps. And it is managed, not cured, but there are medications to kind of so that it doesn't get kind of too intense. HIV, remember that this damages the immune system, and it has sort of stages to it. Now, HIV stands for what was it stands for? HIV stands for, let me think about this. Human immuno deficiency virus. Okay, that's what HIV stands for. Now, HIV can lead to AIDS. AIDS is basically kind of the most intense version of HIV. This is acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. And that's basically when your immune system is basically so screwed, right? The problem with HIV isn't HIV itself. It damages your immune system so that other diseases, or even just like the common cold, right? That's going to be devastating for you. And you got pubic lice, exactly like, what it sounds like. And, looks kind of like crabs. And, yeah, it's just like hella itchy, Then you got bacterial vaginosis, leads to discharge, fishy odor. Once again, antibiotics, bacterial, remember. All right. And, remember that bacterial vaginosis, it's basically like an imbalance in the kind of the bacteria of the vagina. Basically, the vagina like cleans itself. But, when you do like douching or, sexual activity increases, that can lead to an imbalance in the bacteria in the vagina. All right. Then you got UTIs. So UTIs are not STIs, but basically it's caused by like mainly dehydration. So, just drink more water when you get it. It's just caused like frequent urination. It just causes you to, pee more often. Maybe you might even feel like a burning sensation. It's treated with antibiotics. Then finally you have PID, which is basically pain in the ovaries and abs, a little burning sensation, and it comes from untreated STIs and requires antibiotic treatment. Now, I forgot to put this on here, but yeah, I'll also have hepatitis B. And the thing you need to know about hepatitis B is that liver, right? It affects the liver. The liver can't filter. It causes yellowing of the skin, and sharing needles, not using condoms, that can cause hepatitis B. All right. Now, remember that using condoms, it might kind of maybe make it kind of less likely for you to get an STI or some specific STI, but it's like not a guarantee. Stuff can still happen. And speaking of condoms, speaking of condoms, you got the male condom and the woman condom. In the male condom, you probably know what it looks like. So it's basically like, this is like the wrapper. So this is kind of how you use the condom. It comes in 7 steps, all right? First of all, when you get your condom, you got to check that expiration date, all right? So that's the first step. You want to check the expiration date. Yeah, condoms can expire. Like they can get, kind of dry, and that's not going to be good when you have sex. All right. Let me see. Second step. Carefully, you don't want to rip open the pack like hella aggressively, right? Carefully carefully open the pack. Carefully open pack. All right. All right. Now, the next step is that you want to make a condom look like a hat. So this is kind of look like what a condom looks like, right? It's kind of like this shape, and there's like a little hole for you to put your sausage in there. Now, you want to make sure that there's kind of like a little hat right over here. And the reason why, is because you want to kind of leave a space at the end of this condom, right? So this is going to be the space at the end of a condom. The reason for that is because that's where your nut is going to be. All right, this is the storage for the nut. All right, number 4, you got to roll it down. So roll it down the sausage. Make sure it covers, most of it at least. The more you roll down, the better. Less chance you got of, something happening. Number 5, all right, you got to make sure a condom is lubricated. And I'm not talking about using lotion to lubricate it, all right? Usually, if you go to a store and you buy a condom, there's usually like lubrications specifically for condoms. So yeah. All right. Now, number 6, have fun. All right. Number 6 is, when you have your little, you have your fun time. Number 7 is you got to take it off. So you want to hold the end of the condom. So it's not stuck. So no stuck. And you just want to, slowly, gently pull it out and then discard it. And yeah, that's basically it. Now, women's condom is kind of like weird, bro. It's like, think of it as like a bigger version of a male condom. It looks kind of like a little like tube thing. Now, what a woman does it, she just puts the condom in her hole so that, when the male goes in, then, everything's good. It's important to know that you never use a male and a woman condom at the same time. It can provide friction, and that's bad because it can break. And also, it's important to know that, let's say this is the woman's private, right? And she's using a woman condom. It's important, and this is the woman condom, right, inside this thing. All right. Now, make sure that, when you're doing the dirty, make sure your glizzy is in the right position, right? So make sure the glizzy is in the right position. Because if the glizzy is in the wrong position and then it slips and then it goes into the, the other parts of the hole, well then, you're gonna get a STI, right? Then it's gonna slip out of this like condom, right? The condom is right over here, but your glizzy's kind of shifted away from it. So that's kind of the disadvantage of using a female condom, right? Female condoms, that kind of slipping stuff can happen. Now there are 3 types of condoms you gotta know. So you gotta know latex condoms. They are the most common. Then you have non-latex, like polyurethane, pretty sure. And you have lambskin. You also have like freaking flavored condoms and glow in the dark condoms. Usually that's only used for when you're putting the glizzy in the mouth. All right, you never want to use kind of the flavored condoms. You never want to, you never want to do it when you're doing the sausage to the hole. All right, to the hole. That's that's a no bueno. What you got to do is that's only for freaking mouth to glizzy. That's what it's used for. All right, but yeah. So there are some specific types of condoms that are only used for a specific type of thing. So shouldn't go out there and experiment. All right, that's when bad stuff's gonna happen. And yeah, that's pretty much it.